just recently for this film that we're going to show, hopefully. And he said, you know, one of the things that we've got to realize is that we've got to rely on ourselves. And it does really come from an individual, and collectively, if you can get a theme, get a vision, the community can come together. And when the community does come together, and I always cite this as an example, after a hurricane, the community comes together for that brief moment to help people out when we don't have all the material things that we can do, and we're just basically trying to survive over what we do have. And that spirit needs to be captured and continued. Now, to answer your question about government, yeah, you know, government has flaws, you know, and that has a lot to do with the people who are elected officials, who have been brought into power, and their agenda changes, and we're seeing a lot more party politics than actual politics that relates to the community, their constituencies, and you've got this influx that's going on. Yeah, well, here's the more important thing is we've got as a community to make this as a priority. And then by making it as a priority, then we can put those elected officials on call for it. And we've got to hold them to it. And that's one of the reasons Greenrock is not a political party. We'll work with government. We'll work with everybody. Because at the end of the day, we need a dialogue. And we need to also, behind closed doors, and even in the paper, we've come out and said what we had to say, but we try to use facts. It's not a shot at an individual. It's not trying to create controversy. It's more saying, here are the facts. And to take one point is the government put a sustainable development policy together. There was a policy that they enacted. They drafted in 2005, got all this consultation. 2008, they enacted it. But the truth of the matter, where the real failure is across ministerial side. You know, so you've got cultural affairs is helping to communicate it. Well, then you got to get all the other ministries on board, all working together. And that's where that Charles Brown is trying to do in his Sustainable Development Unit. But that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do, Gary, you know, because we're strayed away from things at such a rapid pace. You know, we've undervalued the core things that have helped to give us the strength to become what we are today. And now we're seeing this rapid deterioration, and we don't understand where it's come from. It's because we've departed from those core things, you see? So, you know, like the thriftiness, you know, like for example, in my family, right, I was starting to say, you will look at my family pictures. You'll see my older cousin wearing a red and blue striped shirt. Then you'll see my next cousin wearing a red and blue striped shirt. And then you'll see me wearing it. It's the same shirt. It's hand-me-downs. Now you got little babies wearing $30-something shoes. They can't even walk, Gary.
Yeah.
Right? Now babies' clothes
so
don't get spoiled.
It's a question of priority.
Yeah, because they grow so fast that you can't even wear them for long. So why aren't those things being handed over? Why aren't strollers? Any little thing. We throw everything in the trash. You know, we just want, but we don't see consequences. So hopefully we get this film because, you know, we had a student ask a question, you know, it was talking about a product for $4.99 and what's involved with making it so cheap. And he was saying, well, I think you're going to have a hard time getting people to buy the more expensive item. And I said, well, if when you went to reach for that item, you saw the faces of all the people who were hurt or taken advantage of to get that product to you for that price, would you still buy it? And he paused. And he said, I wouldn't. And that's the thing. So the veil is causing us to continue to perpetuate ignorance. We just need really to be able to educate ourselves and start to just do the things that make sense. We talk about economics around solar power, right? What is the most simplest form of solar? A clothesline. But you go in a neighborhood and people say, no, you can't have clotheslines up. You know, it doesn't. It's messing up the decor for this neighborhood. Yeah. And then those same people were telling you to spend thousands of dollars on a solar panel. And you say, well, the simplest form of solar has a clothesline.
Yeah. I think what I'll say on top of that, Joe, right, what I'm saying is when you look at a system that is geared to profit, okay, so we have evolved into that. So you go out to a bar and a guy is clearly drunk or inebriated, all right? So the bartender has to determine, right, does he make a next dollar or sell a next drink? So a person comes into a shop, right, every week to buy a pair of sneakers. Now the clerk knows the guy has bought for 10 weeks, every week, a pair of sneakers. I mean, how many pairs of sneakers do you need? So what does that mean about society and its trends? You know, we sell because that's what we do. We consume because we in a place where we can do it, right? See what I'm saying? But do you eat just because food's there? What do you do? Where you cut off? Right? Where's the discipline?
And there's the actual individual action in this case where you're basically kind of feeling like peer pressure, whether you're using the baby shoes and stuff like that. But then there's also the other side, is what kind of companies, like for example, Nike, as a result of, in the 80s, got really slammed as a result of the fact that they were shown using sweatshops to build their clothes.
Yes.
And there was a huge commercial backlash. Well, now in 2000, they're made a mandate that they're trying to produce most of their materials with 35% recycled things. So, for example, you can take your shoes back to Nike stores in North America, and they have a bin, and then they recycle them. Well, why are we not doing that in Bermuda? And they're actually now selling shirts for this upcoming World Football. Their shirts, Nike shirts, are made from plastic bottles. Yeah, because it's basically taking the polyurethane, or the polypropylene, and converting it into polyester. So that kind of thing, for example, for those guys selling goods like that in Bermuda, well, we need to identify them so that they get a lower duty because they're contributing. And that's where it gets very interesting, because then what's happening is we're, as a country, are taking an active role saying, okay, we control everything that comes in. Let's bring things into our shore that make sense to us, that either helps to globally do something good and at the same time make it cost effective. So
But you yourself, suggested that these green items tend to be more expensive. Government, has anyone made an approach to government to say, look, we're bringing in solar panels to help sustain the life of this country? How much are we going to get off to bring these solar panels in so we can sell them cheaply to the community so we don't put a burden on Belco's generation process?
Yeah, those discussions occurred. They actually have zero duty on what was interesting is in the past, getting historical, because solar energy or solar systems were introduced to Bermuda. My mother actually was on in the 70s. You know, a lot of Barbados was one of the examples where it recognized this problem, and this is a good example of leadership. Barbados turned around and says, okay, we're going to make it mandatory across things, and so that lowered the cost. They also assisted in the installation and everything like that, but they did that in the 70s. So today, that savings is like a 35% savings to most of the population, and they've actually built that into their building development plans, whereas we embarked it in the 70s. The only thing in our duty tariff relief was we just gave the panel itself. Well, if you install solar thermal, it requires all the plumbing and all the fixtures. Well, the recent act change now is that they're looking at the whole system, because before you could get the duty in for the panel but not all the other stuff, and that was just crazy because it just killed that whole market. Whereas now they've actually done the system. There's still a lot of flaws. We're trying to work through them in terms of those flaws to kind of come up with a way that's going to make more sense. And here's where it gets back to the cross-ministerial side. It's the finance minister, which is in charge of duty tariff, working with the planning so that the act of actually installing it can be done, working with the energy department. There's all these moving parts, and the unfortunate thing to a certain degree, you kind of wish you could put them all in a room and say, let's decide this before we get out. And that doesn't happen. That's one of the challenges that I think Charles Brown's Sustainable Development Unit has. But we, as a Greenrock, we're trying to push that from underneath. We explain that to people. So then people say, wow, that's true. Why aren't they doing that? And hopefully that gets them to push from underneath.
So what are some of the other things you guys doing for Heritage Month to get this message out?
Well, the next thing we have after this is a film screening. It's going to be at Harbor Nights on the 19th. So we have a big 50-foot screen out for an outdoor film to raise more awareness about the environment. And an exciting thing that we're planning is on the 27th of the month. We're having what we're calling a national debate on the environment. And we're working with Gladstone Thompson. And he's putting together debate teams with primary and middle school students, and they're going to debate first. And then he's making a team of his top high school debaters. And our responsibility has been to pull together a team of high-profile adults from the community who these high school students are going to debate against. And
when does that take place?
Can we mention some of the names that we've challenged to come forward, Jane? Would that be appropriate or inappropriate?
When is it due to take place, first of all?
It's due to take place on the 27th.
At the Heritage.
And it's at Heritage Worship Center, which is on the corner of Union and Dundonald Street, and it'll be at 7 p.m.